Is
Um,
my Can you see me and hear me?
yeah,
Cool. Sweet.
just letting Carter in. Yo, Carter,
Yep.
what's cooking? Good looking.
What's good, boys?
All right,
What
brother.
up?
Excited.
Yeah,
Yeah, I must say I was actually looking forward to this.
Oh, dude.
And
yeah,
last week too, but I think it's building every week.
yeah.
Every day
In ter-
too.
you know, like in terms of the amount that I'm looking forward to it.
Definitely. It's even. Oh, hold on. Gonna be a big noise.
Which I think says a lot. I think
Yo,
that says
Carter,
something alone.
Carter, no big noises, please.
Hey,
um,
I had to start the Corvette real quick.
yeah, Carter drives a Corvette. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
He's a Kansas boy in a muscle roadster.
I am
Just
a big mechanical individual. I love parts, old stuff, old cars, physics, that kind of the whole
Sweet.
thing.
Sick.
yeah.
All right.
Hell
I'm
yeah.
muted.
No, I just love how this tea we have like three very different parts of America represented. we got a black guy from Brooklyn,
Yeah,
a Middle Eastern dude, first generation from Detroit, and a honky from Kansas City. It's pretty interesting.
A dynamic trio. I love
I love it.
Yeah. I don't know if people can see my screen, but I actually, so I asked Gabe, who's our uh, head of data science or data scientist, not head of data scientist at Your Super. He's got an idea, and you and I were discussing this a couple weeks ago. The thing called Team Time we were kicking around,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and it was so funny because like I'm telling you, the day after you and I got off that phone call, where I'm like, "Yeah, I got this like crazy idea." It hit me like a lightning bolt. Like walking through the specifics, Gabe comes up to me at work, and he's like, "Yo, man, I want to talk to you about something. Can I give you a call after work?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, man." Calls up and like pitches back to me a very similar concept that he'd been working on for like weeks previous, um, which is really interesting because it just begs the question, at least in my mind, you know, are these ideas created or are they discovered?
Right.
Something I've been asking myself a lot lately. So, um, yeah, I'm gonna hit him up and come on, and hopefully he can fill in some more of the gaps. Um,
Dope. Yeah, I
yeah.
had a few people that were like, yeah, might join. So let's see. One of them is my cousin who
Mhm.
is a nurse. She's a nurse and a yoga instructor and has a
Mm.
degree in psychology. And she wants to do she wants to target African American families with different mindfulness offerings.
Mm.
So pretty like contextually, culturally relevant mindfulness type of platform, uh, which she kind of pitched to me in brief before, but I was like, you should save it for the
Yeah.
webcast.
Yeah, it's kind of tough finding that balance sometimes because you're like, oh yeah, I just
Yeah,
want to dive into this shit.
exactly.
But you gotta kind of save some of the juicy bits for this. I think it's interesting the prospect of doing something specifically for African Americans.
Mm,
Like what are the specifics around a mindfulness software which can target an ethnic group specifically?
right. Well, I think that a lot of yogic or mindfulness things that we have now, even though they're not catered to a specific ethnic demographic, one can
Hmm.
say that implicitly they are, right?
Right.
And I think that there are some nuances about Black culture, and there are some nuances about Black culture, and also I don't know the numbers on this, but in terms of, we have proven benefits around different mindfulness practices, meditation, etc.
Hmm.
But I don't know what those numbers look like in terms of ethnic breakdown of people who have a consistent practice. But
Yeah.
I would go off on a whim and say that I think that number may be, it may not have the highest number of participants in African American communities. So I think there's a bit of a gap there.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a gap there. So she wants to target African American families specifically, and looking at how we can bring, different mindful practices into the household.
Yo, get her on. But Gabe and Sha are actually waiting to be let in. I would love to hear more about that, though. All right, you guys ready to rock?
Yeah, we'll get her on. We'll get her on. Yeah.
All right, cool. I'm gonna let these guys in.
Cool.
What's up, guys?
Hey.
Yo.
Hey, Mark.
What's going on? Hey.
How's it going?
Yeah,
going well.
Yeah, we're excited to have you guys on, man.
Yeah, likewise. We're excited to be here. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Gabe, I gave E a little intro on how we know each other, but I guess I'll repeat that back. Gabe is data scientist, and we work together. Super talented dude. I lean on him for answering most of my questions around all things digital. With the mountains of data we have at Your Super, and he's got an idea that he's been kicking around and brought me into the loop a couple days. If you want to take it from there, Gabe.
Yeah, thanks for the intro. And so like Nick mentioned, we've been working together for probably almost over a year, but only recently in the same city since Nick moved to LA. I came to him about a month and a half ago with this idea that Sha and I have been working on. We're calling it Couch Class. And really what we're trying to do is just create a platform that really easily and seamlessly connects online teachers with instructors. And I'll put an emphasis on independent online instructors because the instructors we really want on our site are independent and they're entrepreneurs and they're building their own businesses. So we want to create a platform that empowers them to expand and scale their businesses.
Wow, cool. And who would be the buying end of it?
So the buying end will be a combination of demand that we help generate through marketing efforts and combine that with some of these independent instructors that already have followings that they've been building up on their own personal social media accounts and whatnot.
Right. So would it be a platform to book their time?
Yeah, so from the instructor side, we're going to help create a lot of the admin tasks that they can easily do almost in a way that like e-com sites sign up for Shopify and then they can manage a lot of their administrative tasks. We see Couch Class being a similar type of thing where they can process payments, they can set up their email marketing, they can automate any number of things in order to optimize their classes, like collect the signups and also network with other instructors in the community.
Dope. So this would be like an online interaction. So these are online classes or online sessions versus in person.
Yes.
Cool.
And then most of these teachers are right now hosting them through Zoom. But if we're really going to look into the big picture, it'd be really cool if we could incorporate our own video conferencing software where they could just go right in live on the site.
For sure. And are you looking more at one-on-one or group based?
Sha, you want to answer that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that the way we're thinking about it right now is we certainly want to include both. Obviously, when you look at what these entrepreneurs are doing, they have a variety of types of classes that they're probably overseeing, right? They probably have a certain bucket that's really tied to studios. Now, with this whole paradigm shift and everything going digital, a lot of studios are actually hosting Zoom classes online. Now, because of this, we've seen firsthand a lot of independent instructors need to find another supplemental revenue stream. And so they're actually turning to start to build their own brands and to start to build their own businesses outside of what the studios used to provide. And so with that includes not only scheduled classes that could be in group settings, but also incorporates potential private classes. And now we could dive into what currently exists, but I think going back to what Gabe said earlier, where our head is really at is creating a platform that's sticky enough for teachers to want to bring people to the website and use this kind of as that centralized platform that could help facilitate all of those messy activities
Yeah.
that go hand in hand with administering and organizing your own business and communicating out to your user base. And then, of course, processing messy payments and being able to see real-time insights and reviews and to start to create a central database and source of truth for that. So at the end of the day, there's no point of building any product unless we're actually building value for our users. And so that's kind of where we are right now. It's a lot of heavy research, a lot of making sure that we really fully understand what the pain points they currently see today. And within our initial findings, there's a lot to touch upon here.
Nice. I'm curious. Nick, did you have something? I had a question.
No, go ahead.
I'm curious to know what the inspiration was behind this concept. Where did it come from? What inspired you?
Yeah, I'll start, and then Sha can also answer, because we both have a personal touch which kind of led us to this. My girlfriend teaches meditation classes with her sister through an online psychology account they've been growing. It's called Sisters in Psychology. So she's been, ever since quarantine, been hosting Sunday classes, and they get anywhere between 5 to 15 people that are doing these live meditations. And I was kind of watching how she was organizing this, and I was just trying to brainstorm with her some ways she could kind of organize it more. So that was kind of the initial seed that was planted in my head. But then what really gave me the full idea was after I actually took a yoga class from Sha's girlfriend, and she had a similar type of business set up. And Sha, you can kind of maybe speak to the yoga, Jaya's yoga.
Yeah, totally. Before diving into that, I actually, Gabe and I have been best friends since high school. We met in 9th grade.
Nice.
And we both grew up in Los Angeles, and we've always been very interested in entrepreneurship and business. Now, when we went to college, Gabe actually moved out to the Midwest, went to school in Wisconsin. I stayed in LA, went to USC, and then, of course, when we both graduated college, we switched places. I got a job out in Chicago working for Uber Freight, which at the time in 2017 was just getting started.
Nice.
And Abe went to Los Angeles. So I've actually been in Chicago for the past 3 years. And what I currently do for Uber Freight is I'm on a pretty small team that oversees product strategy and development. So really within our own business unit, creating enterprise and trucking facing products, really turning them from ideas to like ideation to actual like 0 to 1 implementation.
Right.
So,
right.
I'm always thinking about problems to solve, user needs to look into. And of course, when the pandemic hit and quarantine started, I lived with my girlfriend in a 1-bedroom apartment in Chicago. And I started to find myself in meetings with like 30 people on Zoom, but next door, my girlfriend would be teaching like a disco yoga class or something. And we'd just always constantly be switching routines, which is really cool because we got kind of a peek under the hood of what we deal with daily. And actually, as I'm speaking, she's teaching one right now next door. But the point being is I got to see firsthand all of the prep work and all of the pretty gritty organization that goes into just maintaining an independent instructor's business and consistently updating it, creating your own marketing materials, facilitating all the administrative tasks. And to date, there's really no seamless platform that actually uplifts these independent instructors without taking their intellectual property and almost absorbing them into the company. And so that's really where, when Gabe brought the idea to me, I kind of looked internally at what I was seeing and like throughout quarantine. And I saw like a very interesting user need that could potentially be addressed.
Right. So then through this, for example, your girlfriends would be able to use this platform to offer their classes and kind of have all the bells and whistles taken care of while keeping the autonomy of themselves as an entrepreneur and as a business.
Exactly.
And I do want to say we have right now we have 6 teachers signed up, so it's not only a site for our girlfriends, but that was the incentive.
Yeah. No, I was just using the example.
Yeah, I'm just joking.
Cool. So y'all have 6 signups, and are you running a bit of a pilot?
Yeah, we have the site, I'd say 80% built, and the teachers have all submitted all their information for their profiles. They each gave, from previous students that took their class, some feedback and comments. So we're kind of going to incorporate that too. So there's almost like a Yelp element to this to kind of generate interest. And yeah, we'd like to launch with about 6 to 8 teachers and really just get as much feedback as we can and iterate from there.
Yeah, I think
Sweet.
at the end of the day, we're really keen on actually seeing what kind of behavior and interactions are facilitated on this platform. And most importantly, like deciding if there's a proof of concept, exactly what angle to index on more. So to start off, we have a variety of types of independent instructors, not just fitness, not just yoga. I have a friend who's a DJ who's going to be offering like private DJ classes, and
Sick.
cooking classes as well. And while it's very wide scope for the pilot, I certainly do have a hunch that we'd probably consolidate our focus longer term. But I think that's part of the exploratory phase that we're really excited to just see what kind of resonates with the average consumer in this space.
Right. Yeah. This is the definitely the learning phase, right? Where it's like, okay, playing with all these different variables, seeing, okay, maybe group things do well, maybe one-on-ones do well, maybe DJs maybe DJs are like the thing, right? I guess you'll learn a lot through the pilot.
Yeah.
What are you building it with? Like, what is this pilot website or software built with? What are you using?
It's right now it's being built with Squarespace, so it's definitely not
Okay, word.
custom built, but Squarespace is really kind of impressing me in terms of the speed at which
It
I'm able
is.
to build and these add-ons that they offer. It's pretty cool.
So then, do you have like a scheduling capability?
Yeah, we've integrated with Acuity.
Okay.
And so yeah, we would pay the monthly subscription as the business, and then the instructors, that's kind of one of the value adds that they get to use Acuity. We can administer as many accounts as we want with the subscription we have.
Yeah, and
Wow,
one thing
cool.
we really like about Acuity is it's pretty customizable. So we could actually have a variety of types of payments that are facilitated, some for private classes, some for reoccurring classes. And I think longer term, if we did want to implement some form of subscriptions or reoccurring payments, we have that optionality as well. So we'll walk before we run, but Acuity gives us that kind of exploratory flexibility that we're looking for.
For sure. Is Acuity kind of like, I'm not familiar with it, but is it kind of like Calendly?
Yeah, I know Calendly only by name, but I have a feeling it's similar. It essentially creates a very easy plugin where on the site you just embed the code, and then on the Acuity end you can like schedule all the different classes, you can process payments, and you can do subscriptions as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah. When did you start? Like, how long is this all taken to get this pilot where it is now in terms of having that Squarespace Acuity integration, rolling it out to 6 to 8 people?
We could probably look at the dates. It has not been longer than 2 months. I'd say we're about 6 weeks in. I think after the first 10 days, we were like just making so much progress. We're like, oh my God, we got to go live. Like, this is all happening. Quarantine's going to end. But then we kind of slowed down a second and we're like, we want to build this out and like do a proper test and make sure we've like thought about this well. I mean, I definitely think it's a balance in terms of figuring out what is the optimal minimum viable product. Because you don't want it to not have enough functionality, but you also don't want to spend like 6 months like before you even know.
Sure. Right. And I mean, it sounds like you're making all the right moves, right? The Squarespace stack mitigates the risk, right? And you have the people for the pilot, and you're open to experimentation.
Yeah, I'm curious from both of your perspectives, what kind of online classes you've like taken during quarantine and before quarantine.
Yeah, Nick, do you want to go first, or?
Yeah, damn, online classes. I mean, I'm a big YouTuber. I'm always learning something and digging into something weird. Recently, it's been a lot of chess. So doing a lot of chess tutorials. I know Eli used to play chess back in the day. He could probably still whip my ass. I'm doing a design course. Actually, we're doing it as a team to learn the fundamentals of speaking design. I've also been doing a lot of marketing courses. We have like 300 courses available through our company, and I've just been ripping through all of those. And then the live courses, I've been doing like meditations, a lot of Reiki healing classes. And it's fun. It's funny because even my girlfriend, she just did this breathwork certification class. So in a way, I think like this would also be a great platform for her to come up with a new offering.
Yeah, get your girlfriend on it as well, and then
Yeah, maybe that's the use case. I don't know. Yeah, and Sha, just like you, we also live in a one-bedroom apartment, so we're like always we're literally like coordinating schedules. We like shared calendars,
Oh,
so there's no
totally.
overlap. Yeah, it's real.
It's a whole operation in itself.
Yeah.
Especially with back-to-back meetings, that just messes everything up.
Yeah, it's not the move. E, what have you been diving into? You've had some cool courses.
Yeah. So at the moment, I'm taking a course on gamification. So it's a design course on gamification through something called the Interaction Design Foundation. So it's more of a quiz-based reading video, pre-recorded video-based course, assignment-based course. So I'm doing that. Prior prior is mostly other design courses, other just like UX design courses, just out of sheer curiosity and understanding. But one thing that kind of pops into mind about what y'all are doing when I'm talking about these classes is I think it also caters to different learning styles. Like for example,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't like a lot of what we have now in terms of the gamification course that I'm doing. It's very much so your traditional style of learning, right? Like let's watch the video, read the PowerPoint, read the quiz, answer the question. But some people actually don't learn well like that. And some things genuinely are better taught through interaction with an expert.
totally.
So that kind
Yeah.
of just, yeah.
Well,
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, people have been taking online classes for a while, but it definitely is evolving as quarantine has kind of pushed it to evolve.
Well,
Yeah.
it's funny because Gabe, even you asked like what course I've been taking, the majority of my opportunities to learn, as you know, have been with your super. We have all these daily, like weekly meditations. We have workouts before work. We've done lunch and learns with people. We did like a Tony Robbins coaching session in the morning. And it's funny because when Gabe pitched me this idea, I'd actually ironed out a very similar idea myself. Sorry about the beeping. I don't know where the hell it's coming from. And it was called Team Time, also palindrome. And the focus was I did this internal security course at your super, and I was telling some friends in the area about it, like, yo, we could really use the same information for our companies. And what occurred to me in that moment was I feel I would be very comfortable even charging, $1,000 for an hour just to go in, take my expertise around security and internet security, front end development, possibly even Shopify as a platform or the transition from code to no code, and offer those as individual courses to companies in the Los Angeles area. So, I've been contracting with different software development companies for the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 years now. And to me, this seemed like an opportunity to come up with a new offer, right? I meet all these amazing entrepreneurs from all over the world who I would love to work with in some capacity, but I don't have that very clear offer in terms of this is how you can book me out for an hour. This is how you can introduce me to your team. This is how I can showcase to you guys all the things that I can do, and then you can make the decision around the hiring. So when Gabe originally pitched it to me, now given more context, it makes way more sense because your girlfriend's going through this, right? But to me, I felt like this would be a great opportunity for all the people who've been laid off in mass from these companies with these very specific skill sets around data science, around engineering, these amazing people who have so much to offer. having the opportunity to reach out to companies and say, hey, I know you're not ready to hire me today because budget constraints and you guys aren't really looking, right? But here's a new offer. So to me, it almost felt like a really good play into not only the people who have been laid off from the studios locally, but also people who laid off from the companies locally to create a new offer at a premium price.
Yeah, and that's really interesting, and definitely I think there's also a market there. I think they're kind of similar markets that cross over in some capacities, and they are different in others. At least in terms of the way that our girlfriends have set up their businesses, I don't know if they necessarily would pitch to companies, but they probably would be interested in doing that as well. So it definitely has some crossover, I think.
Yeah, and I think that, Nick, it's awesome use case, and you're exactly right. It's a little bit more B2B, a little bit more upstream,
Yeah.
but at the same time, we're empowering instructors, independent contractors, whatever it may be. At that point in time, they are their business and they are running their brand, and there's no automatic platform that automatically matches them to demand that's out there, right? And so while it might be different, it's actually the same kind of thesis that we have on the independent instructor level. It just would be, like you said, a little bit more premium and a slightly different go-to-market marketing approach, essentially.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way you guys can test this in the early stages is to what the best fit is. Even during the checkout phase, when you're going to purchase that specific course, you can even have an option of is this for 1 people, 5 people, or 50 people, right? You can actually gauge that market size during the checkout and then offer different price points. Because I'll share something with you. If I'm pitching what I the internal security to 100 people at a company, or even you're Uber, 3,000 people, I imagine that to be a very different price point than it would be for a one-to-one interaction.
Absolutely.
So I think it'd be interesting to offer up those different price points and even a suggested range. A lot of times when people make this, we don't like asking for money as entrepreneurs. We don't like asking and commanding the value of our time can command, because everyone has this weird energy around money. So I was even thinking during the sign-up process to offer a range of prices. Hey, you're in Los Angeles, you're in a very high demand area of data scientists. We'd recommend that you charge $1,500 for this course, right? Just nudge them into the direction of that higher price point, and then in effect, you guys make more money too. So that's one suggestion I have, is to really look at who you're offering this to, because both of your girlfriend's classes and even the breathwork class, I could see one of my clients actually signing up and taking the course. And I think it would be a shame if 50 people logged onto the Zoom call versus 5, and they're not capitalizing and capturing that value that they are providing. My other suggestion to you, because I've thought through this model pretty in depth, I'm giving you all my best shit here, is at the bottom of the page, I highly recommend you guys have a place to ask if there's something they want to learn. I saw something really interesting pop on a Hacker News a couple months ago, where they simply asked the question in a forum field, what do you want to learn? Right? And the promise was, whatever it is that you aspire to be, we're going to find you the teachers to fulfill that need and provide you with the price. So, and you could even say, at the bottom of your form field, see something that you're not interested in, but what are you interested in? And then, actually capture that demand and then go find the supply from the teaching perspective. But man, once you have students who are willing to throw money at this, people saying, hey, I'm very, very eager to learn, and I'm ready to actually, up myself and up my game. I mean, it's going to be way easier to attract the teachers. But I do think it's going to be interesting to see how many of the teachers bring audiences over to you. Yeah, I'm just throwing a lot at you here, but
I think it's going to be a combination, because there are a couple of instructors we've spoken to that, for example, one of these cooking instructors, from my understanding, and Sha, you can maybe speak to the number, but he has between 15 to 20 people sometimes joining some of his classes. So if he used our site, in theory, he's bringing that audience over. Whereas we also have the DJ, for example, who I don't know if he's been DJing his whole life. He's a very talented DJ, but I'm not sure he's done a ton of teaching.
Yeah. I think there's a wide spectrum of types of instructors. Some that might already have their bases solidified already, some that might just be growing. I think, to your point, Gabe, this would really enable them to really tap into those private classes easily. But to your point, Nick, we certainly have been thinking a lot about how we can make our platform sticky enough so teachers are actually incentivized to bring people, not necessarily kind of find a workaround, either whether it be through Venmo, Linktree, all other types of resources that currently exist. And so I think the crux of that is, how do we create enough value and how do we make it worth it for people to come to this site? And maybe what we'll find is we do need to move upstream in some sense or another. I think that some initial hunch is that unless we could really work to create network effects and a flywheel of like activity from the user perspective, it might be tough to target like a lower segment that's not as premium, right? But at the same time, we still like feel strongly that this is an underserved kind of portion of like across the spectrum. So yeah, it'll be really interesting. I think that our current stance is try and increase the scope during the early part, and hopefully get some premium options as well. But the B2B option you mentioned is really interesting, because it's like insurance, right? If you're if you're a physical therapist and someone's coming in because their back hurts, they're not paying for it themselves. Their insurance company's paying for it. And so that obviously is a whole new dimension.
Well, I mean, in theory, it's a hedge against the world. It's like previously I relied on this individual studio or set of studios for my business. Now moving on this platform and having my own links and my own sign-up process, I can now bet on the 3 billion people who are willing to pay, right? So it's making that transition of relying on these institutions into relying on to themselves to generate their own business. And now that I think about it, you're absolutely right. Like what I'm pitching is like you're going after people who already have a bit of a consumer market, right? They're already going from B2C versus me where I'm like, hey, I'm normally going B2B as an entrepreneur. Now I have a new offering to offer businesses, right? Like I'm working as a freelancer. I've already got a bit of an audience, like whether it be through LinkedIn or across different platforms. And I'm now creating that new premium offer for that first touch engagement. It's a very different offer because I don't know if people would be interested in personal internet security. They might be. I don't know. I'm just not sure if I would like. That's not my bread and butter is teaching the fundamentals. But I know, you teach coding courses. So Elijah's a teacher at Le Wagon. How many? You've done a bunch of those.
You've done a bunch, yeah. Maybe like 10 batches at this point.
In person, live, or how does it work?
In person. So I've done in-person courses, each one maybe ranging between 15 and 30 students, 9-week full stack program. At the end, they have to design and build products. So yeah, was doing that for a bit. And also on this,
I guess my question is, with that experience, do you feel like you could take that teaching, break off from Le Wagon, because I know you're like semi-retired now from doing the coding courses, and turn it into something to teach individuals? Do you feel like this would be a good fit for you?
100%. And I mean, Le Wagon itself. So Le Wagon is the coding bootcamp, and they've pivoted to. I mean, this is more on the B2B stuff, but they've pivoted to working with companies to upskill employees, right? And I think to your point, Nick, about that B2B model, I think really if you look at the business case for it on the demand side, it's like creating that streamlined process to upskill your employees, right? Rather than having to go and find someone to come in and do a lunch and learn, or find someone, making phone calls and sending out emails. If I could, like that streamlines an entire process on that demand side as well. So that would be something I'd be interested in. And then on the B2C end, what y'all are doing with Couch Class?
Yeah,
I think I would definitely sign up for it because it's already knowledge I have. It's something I've done 1,000 times, and it's something I've done 1,000 times, and it's a value that I know I can offer, but I'm not necessarily but for me personally, that platform would have to be available for me to do that. I'm not gonna push to do that on my own, but if that was available and made available to me, I would definitely do it.
And it's that point right there that I've heard 5 times already, right?
Nice. Yeah,
One
that's an
from a
insight right
DJ
there.
and one from the cooking instructor that we have that's going to be joining us. They have the tribal knowledge and they have all of these skills and they use them every day. But there's some friction in having to not only start this whole process of who do you even market this to, how do you get your name out there, but then actually facilitating those transactions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I imagine the future of education. I feel like you're going to have a calendar and then you're going to have a drag and drop interface. So I imagine somebody like when I'm a parent to my kids, it almost feels like, especially what's happened with this destruction of public schools, you're taking a gamble every time you send your kid to school, right? So I imagine my future, like when I have children, I'm going to actually be dragging and dropping into the next
For
I don't know,
sure.
5 months every single course that they're going to be taking. I know this is the way the future is going to look. And I imagined the way we could get there sooner is if you're a company, right, and you're an office manager who's responsible for providing your employees with insight and all these upskills, as Eli put it, it would be really beneficial if you could actually choose different courses, pop them into the calendar, and then check it out like a cart. Right. And then you planned out the next 3 months of everything rather than going off to these one-to-one interactions with all these different consultants and saying and going through all the complexity of going through the payment process, the negotiation. Nobody really, there's no standardization across the board. So I guess going back to the same question I'll ask Eli, like, would I use it? I wouldn't unless I was making a lot of money. Like, I wouldn't be interested in this unless I was making like $1,000 an hour on this thing. And that to me is my personal pull into the businesses, and also just leveraging my connections in the business world to say, hey, I know you've wanted to work together. You don't have the appropriate project, but here's an opportunity to just get a taste of some of the knowledge that I can bring into your institution. But with that said, it was as easy as, I think you guys could possibly make it. The customer support was covered. I could throw up a page with like an MVP offering. And, I feel like it would be potentially, I even could have a class of 50 people to make it worth my while.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great point. One thing Gabe and I spoke about a lot, and I think would almost be like an ideal future, like state North Star kind of goal for us is everything you just mentioned. That is Airbnb in my mind. If you're a homeowner, you have this house, it's an asset, it's sitting there, it exists, but it's not being utilized. What Airbnb allows is for you to go out and actually name your own price for people to use that asset or use that skill or whatever it may be.
Right.
And so, I think that absolutely makes sense. And hopefully there's a spectrum across a lot of different types of skill sets, and like a sensitivity of what the bare minimum amount you would be paid for something.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
One thing we're also kind of grappling with is if someone like you, Nick, would be like a part-time teacher, whereas someone like Shaw's girlfriend would be like maybe a full-time teacher. Like, can people make a living from this, or would it be a supplemental income? And I think we're trying to really figure out like how would we want to market it, and also obviously we want them to be more regular teachers, but we're just kind of trying to work through some of that stuff,
Yeah. Let's go ahead, D.
No, I was just gonna say when I was thinking about it, I was definitely, for me at least, thinking supplemental income and kind of just something that would be there and people would be able to, book it out. But I wouldn't. But I can see how it can also be someone's primary income. And then going to your point, Nick, about the future of education, I think that this model of learning, it has so many legs and so many use cases that go beyond what you're doing now. But I think y'all already know that and are going to get to that at some point. But I think like this, I just see the potential of it in terms of how we are able to curate our education. Because education, so often we equate education to the school, right? Or education to the classroom. When it's like education's not actually the school, education's not actually the classroom. There are so many ways that you can receive education. And I think being in person or on Zoom with somebody is probably one of the most effective forms of education at its root.
Yeah, that's why even that's like tutoring, like one-to-one, like the traditional, using traditional words. It's like you have tutoring, you have a classroom setting of few. So you have one-to-one, you have one-to-few, one teacher to few people, and then one-to-many, which is kind of a webinar, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
the truth is, we're all just looking into our cameras and talking. So if I am creating much more value, like by talking to many people, I feel like your obligation is the platform will be to train up these teachers and how to capture that value. So let me ask you guys a question. How does the demand generation work? Let's suppose I was like, all right, internet, personal security with Nick Sarafa. Like I can everyone's scared about their nudes leaking to the internet, right? I'm going to solve that problem. I'm going to teach you password management. I'm going to teach you how to like protect your ass, right, on the internet. How I create the course, and then do I set the date, or do I wait for a certain count of signups and then it generates the calendar invite, or how does that work exactly?
Sure, yeah. So there's a couple different models we're working with. Some of the instructors already regularly offer classes, and they will set their schedule and say, I have a class coming up next Monday at 4 p.m. and you can sign up.
Right.
Irregardless of what time zone you're in, you can obviously just sign up from anywhere in the world. There also is the model where you do a private class and you say, I'm willing to teach this class, and you just put your page up and someone will write an inquiry to you, and then you guys can set up that transaction based on when you both can make it happen. So I think it's a combination of both. One might work better than the other, but we do need to like test that out and see which is the better model, or if both work.
Yeah, and in terms of actual lead generation, I think that really we'll be able to understand a little bit more after we test it out, and more specifically, what kind of segments we're going to be targeting. Because as you can imagine, it's a super wide scope of types of people that might be interested in different types of lessons.
Yeah.
So I think it depends, if we were to go B2B and you did want to target large webinars or businesses or classes, that's a total different go-to-market
For
strategy.
sure.
Then
100%.
hey, we'll make sure that like you populate on Instagram, and we could create network effects through like kind of traditional like avenues, kind of like on the B2C space. So
yeah, I agree. It's different go-to-market strategy, but it would be really cool as an entrepreneur and as a freelancer who sells the skills to many companies to say, has worked with this company, this company, this company, right? Like that's every SaaS dream. It's that
totally.
It's almost like a vote of confidence to say, I've worked with these people in this capacity. And then a lot of times those connections I make internally to those businesses become my word of mouth into other ones, right? But I agree. It's a whole different strategy. But what's nice about the company is that it's a flat rate. You guys do a good job. You just have to facilitate that transaction once. And it's going to be very sticky because they have a dedicated budget on an ongoing basis to continue adding classes and courses. So you have one point of contact with these companies with very broad and defined needs to say, hey, which positions are you guys even hiring for, right? Like you'd even look at, their open jobs and say, okay, this, and this all seem very interesting. And like a recruiter, reach out to these guys with these very specific skill sets and say to them, hey, we know you're hiring for this. Why don't you guys get a taste of this in this like 2-hour webinar, right? Or this, and it is very different go to market, but your sales cycle will be a bit longer because you're catering to businesses. But once you have that customer and you have captured those students in the form of that business, you can charge a premium flat rate, and you don't have to worry about how many people show up, right? You don't have to facilitate 20 transactions, 20 different points of contact to different customers. You're only facilitating with one.
Yeah,
absolutely. Especially, I mean, my brother-in-law works in Silicon Valley, and we got into a conversation once, and he was saying, yeah, there's a whole industry for yoga instructors that just bounce around from company to company, and it's all word of mouth, right? And it's exactly what you just said. It's all just word of mouth knowledge, but also there's an aspect of being verified, being validated, and having a track record. And so with a platform like this, we certainly would be able to show that track record and almost digitize that word of mouth in a way.
True.
Yeah,
true.
And I think some of your initial costs are going to be a lot of customer support. It's going to be hand-holding through the process of the sign up, right? Inspiring the confidence because there's very low trust in the platform. that the payouts are going to work. I'm assuming you guys are doing that all off the cuff right now, without any sort of payouts through Stripe set up yet. And just really communicating the money, man. Just, it's going to be going to these guys, be like, yo, I see what you're doing. I hear what you're doing. We believe in what you're doing. Come and do it through us. And we have a lot of people are interested in very similar areas.
Yeah.
And are y'all?
Yeah, go for it.
No, go for it, Gabe.
I was going to say,
but I'll go after you.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, in terms of like kind of incentive models, we were thinking of maybe not paying teachers outright at the beginning, but offering some kind of incentive model where for X amount of signups, they can help generate through their own channels, through their own marketing platforms like Instagram. We could offer some kind of incentive structure to kind of help generate that demand at the beginning, in addition to like standard channels, like just running ads.
Well, what would you offer them? Like, what's the incentive?
Yeah, I mean, let's say somebody already has like 5,000 followers. If they can generate 100 signups in the first month, then we could say for every additional 25 signups you can generate, we'll pay you out, let's say $2 per signup or whatever it is, like just to kind of similar to like when you sign up for Uber or Lyft, they have very good incentive structures to get you in for that first month.
I would definitely go the affiliate route. Like whenever you have a teacher's link being shared out, I would definitely pop some UTMs on that to track exactly where it's coming from, exactly where it's going. I think you should just do that by default. I bet you there is a Squarespace plugin to do that, to track specific channels. It is interesting because I mean, I guess like what's the cash situation? Like, what would you have to market that?
What would we have to market that? Sorry, can you clarify?
Like how much capital do you have to push into that channel?
Oh, yeah. So I mean, we don't. We're still kind of working out like what kind of models would make sense and would create enough incentives based on like our initial startup costs, which we're not working with a huge budget just yet. But yeah, we're kind of that's something we're working through as we do an initial beta.
Yeah, and to your point, Nick, we're going to be very careful about setting unscalable structures before we start, especially from an incentive perspective. To Gabe's point, we've looked at a couple of different potential revenue structures for the core business itself. They all come with a variety of pros and cons, but I think that the structure we're leaning to is likely either some combination of a freemium model and a transactional cost, not to the instructor, but to the user. But really with the at the end of the day, we're competing with Venmo, and we're competing with a lot of other sites that could disintermediate us. So we want to be we want to caution the incremental costs that would potentially derail users from our site. And so that's why we like the freemium structure. But I love personally recurring revenue from a business health standpoint. I do think that the structure will look utterly different from private classes that are simply generated from our site and from our demand versus pre-existing scheduled classes where they're essentially bringing people to the site. And I don't think they should be treated equally.
Disintermediation. I've worked in a company, very small startup in the two-sided marketplace. It's such a shame when you actually have to use the ban hammer. It's gonna happen naturally, and it's just you got to calculate it as churn. It's inevitably going to happen. And you just have to be very clear about when that's going to take place. But that's the thing, is that if you can encourage these users, or I'm sorry, the teachers, to command a higher price point and nudge them in the direction of making more money, they're happily going to share that value with you. At least I feel like I would. If I'm sitting here and I'm like, even during sign up, man, I'm creating my course and it's like, maybe you should maybe instead of charging like $15, try charging 25. You know what I mean? Like, this is kind of the average range. It could even be that little nudge of saying like, wow, like these guys are helping me up my skill and up, the value I'm charging. And so they'd be more than happy to grow with you. I don't think anyone's going to be slighted with a transaction fee. It's just when you hit that scale, that's when things get a little bit more funky, right? When like the more demand you have on the demand side, the more power you have on the supply side. It's very interesting levers that I've seen work. I don't know if you guys have heard the story about like Airbnb and the photos they were taking of the inside of Like there's a certain
I
inflection
spoke to Gabe
point.
about this. I think that was in a podcast, actually.
Yeah,
How
there's a certain inflection point where they actually sent professional photographers down to the Airbnbs and took very high quality photos, which then helped really showcase their inventory and really gave something for the homeowners to look forward to. Another good example you probably haven't heard about is Egghead.io. They do online software engineering classes, and they hired this badass graphic designer who went in and she made, like, if I did like a MobX state management course on Docker, she'd make like a sick like graphic that's custom to my course. And dude, I'm not kidding you. Like, I've thought about making some shit on Egghead just so I could have an obscure title for some like stupid specific technology, just so this chick would make me a badass graphic. So, the incentives and like what motivates people to sign up for your platform could be as simple as, I'm going to send a professional photographer to your home to take beautiful photos. It could be something as simple as, I'm going to have a designer come in and design this beautiful graphic. Or it could be, we're going to feature you in ads and get your face out there, right? So it's finding that alignment, especially with these small teachers, where maybe it is growing their audience, like that weird incentive cycle that is going to be very unique to your audience.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, that kind of ties into the freemium model of kind of like, what kind of services can we offer where they can like totally just use this for free, and then what kind of other incentive structures can we use that would offer like a premium to our site. Although we don't want to. We think the transactional model ultimately is like the main one, but we're still working on like how much would an instructor be willing to pay if depending on how much scale they're doing of their business. So.
Right. Are y'all looking at like class packages, or are these individual lessons?
So I think eventually getting into class packages could be an interesting play. I've seen
but this is just a single lesson to start with, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think if someone wanted to sign up for this lesson every week on Mondays, we'd be able to create that option. But yeah, we're looking at it as single classes as of now. Now, I know that instructors do have packages themselves, so it probably might be something that we include longer term. But
Yeah.
to your point too, Nick, I think you hit it on the head. It's all about putting them out there, being able to feature them, showcase their talents, and then they connect people to these very talented independent instructors and break down the barriers of having to go see them in person. I think there's just this massive shift in willingness to learn online, engage online, interact with humans through a microphone and a camera.
Yeah.
What better time to try and bridge that gap than now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have y'all heard of Kajabi or used it?
No, I actually haven't.
Okay, I would say definitely check Kajabi out, because it's more for e-learning. Like we're using Kajabi on a project, but it's more e-learning type style thing. You should check it out, because I think their approach in how their mission is to empower entrepreneurs and empower entrepreneurs to be teachers, but totally different model to what you're doing. Instead, they're doing more like, your PowerPoint, quiz-based, etc. courses. But they really tried to put everything in there to be an all-in-one. Even if you look at their landing page, they're like, they have all these things: MailChimp, Squarespace, WordPress, like all these logos. And their whole value prop is they're going to put that all into one, so that you as an entrepreneur can just use Kajabi to manage your marketing funnels, to manage your signups, all that stuff. So I would check out Kajabi, just because I think they took a similar approach in terms of trying to empower the entrepreneur. And it could just be an interesting thing to know of when you're looking at this.
Yeah, and actually, now that I think about it, like I usually, my advice is, hey, niche down and find a specific niche. But I've had a lot of people come to me in the last couple of months and be like, we're doing this like teaching platform for spiritual leaders, right? I've heard that pitch 5 different times. It's like, you're on the spiritual journey, and it's funny that you guys have, like, as your first instructors, people who are doing these sort of spiritually ingrained practices through the yoga, through the breath work, which I find fascinating. Maybe there's just like, that is the big movement without a name happening in the world that just has that much demand behind it. But I'd be very curious to see what sticks, because I feel like eventually you're going to find some sort of niche, or there's going to be something that's more effective that you'll start leaning into. And I like the open platform just to see what kind of people come on and what kind of audiences they can attract. And even to saying like, hey, we're going after these kind of like smaller, less known teachers is such an interesting approach, and connecting them with humans. Yeah, I mean, because there is, I am hesitant to buy these online courses. Like, it's very impersonal to me. I'll do it if I have a personal connection with that person. And I feel like you're almost giving them an excuse to start creating that internet-based content. It's like you have the permission now, because you have an audience you can tap into to begin your journey into that digital world, right? Like our institution won't fail you because it doesn't have an address. It's like, this is somewhere we can grow with you. And I feel like even ironing out the steps of here you are today, and here's like your journey for up-leveling yourself into someone that can grow with the platform, I think would be an interesting journey to iron out. But I think you guys have something here. I really do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I agree.
That's funny you were working on something similar. How did your idea come up? Was it in quarantine, or was this something you thought of before?
I really, it's when I gave the internal security presentation to your super a couple months ago. You remember that?
I remember that, yeah.
I was talking to a couple of my other friends who are entrepreneurs in the area, and they're like, yeah, let's hang out. I'm like, nah, I got to do this presentation, and can you give me feedback on it? They're like, dude, can you do this for my company? And I was like, how much would you be willing to pay for that? And they're like, and I got answers in the range of $400 to $1,200 just to give like a 1 hour presentation and meet the badasses on their teams. And I'm like, well, damn, if you guys are looking for internal security, but no one's going to hire that position. Like, you need to hit like some sort of like material scale for you to feel comfortable even hiring that, versus like, yo, in an hour and like just recommendations, the right tooling and processes, I can provide you most of what you need at that early stage. So that was the inspiration behind it. And, I've been living out of a backpack for 5 years, and I've come across so many amazing people with so many amazing offers who don't yet have a business offer. Like, if I'm chilling in a remote place like Bali or somewhere, and I can actually sell myself into a company,
that is so true,
right? Like a company in New York, or a startup in some random entrepreneur that I met in Bali, and say, hey, you can't hire me today, but yeah, I can teach you guys something. Like, you're going to learn the fundamentals of doing X, Y, and Z. It'd be an interesting offer.
Do you think there's a way that both could be like included in a platform like this? Like, I guess I'm trying to think, if we built this out and we had a huge demand side, maybe companies would just come to this site and like find instructors that way too. Like, what's stopping them, I guess?
It's not. You have to iron out the value prop when the teacher makes the course, so that it's very clear that you're not only offering to like individuals in classroom setting, but in the event an enterprise shows up, that you can charge a premium, right? So you just have to, like, through the messaging and through the sign up process, make it very clear, hey, we're gonna iron out both offers, and we actually recommend that the enterprise offer, just because it could be any number of people, right? It could be 3 people, or it could be up to 50 people. This is the minimum recommended price for that certain offer.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, Nick, I'll tell you why I actually really like where your head is at too. It's because, like, who knows how long people will be stuck at home for, right?
Right.
That might change in a year, who knows? But I think one thing that won't change is people's sentiment following this pandemic, and more importantly, enterprises' sentiment. And there's certainly a shift in mindsets around working remotely, being able to try and like incorporate certain types of resources, because at the end of the day, I mean, speak for our company, we have a hiring freeze. I know in most companies throughout the US, they all have hiring freezes, and who's to say that they will want to hire down the road? But at the same time, do they need any less inputs and resources? No, absolutely not. They certainly could use the independent contracting and those insights. So I do think it's an interesting thought to go beyond just like traditional courses that are taught. Really, like, the entrepreneur takes many forms, right?
Yeah, and what's nice about the business going after businesses is you can charge minimum price point. That's a very hefty premium. You can get an understanding of the budget. You can build very long-term relationships, and you can continually fill in those gaps and make these office managers' jobs who have money to throw at this much easier, right? Once you develop
For sure.
3 of those relationships on the demand side, you now have a very sticky platform where they could book out even a year in advance all the different courses. I mean, even if you had a course that you're not offering yet, you can find someone to fill that in, right? You can reach out and say, hey, there's a startup in Los Angeles who really wants you. Can you put together a course for us? I've thought through the model a couple times, and that would be very interesting to people who are already commanding that higher price point and making a lot of money, and who just want to come up with a new offering of something that's already in very high demand.
Yeah. And just piggybacking off of your point, Sha, I think that coming out of, even coming out of this pandemic, when and if we do, I think the total on the enterprise side, I think the total addressable market for something like this is probably doubled, if at least. Because think about all of the companies that are now fully open to the idea of remote anything that were not before. And now that just opens a whole can of worms.
And
to
contracts and actually
I mean,
exactly.
even diversity and inclusion training. Like if you just did diversity and inclusion training and sold it into companies, I bet you could book out 10 of them in the next week if that's just what you did.
Totally.
Right? Like that's the thing, is that you can look at the state of the market from a company perspective and say, what are the things you're leaning into, and how can I provide resources to fill those gaps?
Yeah.
But at the same time,
a lot of legs,
but having an intimate relationship with the teachers, like you guys literally have the most intimate relationship with the teachers you possibly could have, right? That's also a competitive advantage, right?
Totally.
So, and maybe that's why you guys are still like trying to figure out the business model. It's like, yo, how much is my girlfriend going to pay me? You can't fail. So we're coming up on time here, but so the structure of the show is you come on, you pitch your idea, and we give $300 to the best idea. Obviously, you guys are the only idea that came on today because we gave you the whole hour because I really wanted to dig this with Gabe. So we're gonna send you $300 just to help with marketing, costs, whatever. Follow up with you with any resources that you need. Sha, you're welcome to reach out to Eli or myself. We'll put you in contact
for sure.
And it's really good talking to you guys.
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation, and I think Gabe would probably agree. This was like the exact kind of like creative thought exercise we were hoping to get, and obviously really expect both of your opinions. So thanks for having us.
Yeah, no, it's been a really good hour, and thanks for inviting us on. This is a cool show. We really love the name No NDAs.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sorry about that. Well, on that
that's
note,
loud.
Yeah, sorry guys. Appreciate you guys coming on.
Yeah.
Gabe, I'm gonna Venmo you that money, and we'll follow up from there. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Yeah,
awesome.
now definitely check out Kajabi.
Yes.
We'll do. I wrote it down here.
Cool.
All right, guys.
All right.
Talk to you guys later.